It's so much more efficient and quicker if I don't pretend that I have all the answers right away and just say, hey, you're smarter than me. Let me listen to you in this realm. And then go to somebody else and say, hey, you're smarter than me or that other person in this realm.
Yeah.
First thing, avoid hardware at all costs. Yeah, like that is one of the lessons.
Aren't you also working on another hardware project?
Yes, but maybe I'll explain that. If you can't avoid building hardware,
Yeah.
then it actually proves that your hardware is necessary,
Yeah.
right? Which is a good place to be because it takes so long and every expense just builds up. Changing one line of code, you can run it right away. Changing a sensor or a chip, it's weeks to get it manufactured and sent over, and then it may not fix something, right? And of course, there's burn rate for everything else going on.
Hey, folks, and welcome to this latest episode of the Small Tech Podcast. I am Raf, the co-founder of EC, the digital product studio building technology for a more sustainable future. And today we have another awesome guest. He is the founder and CEO of Preception. He's also a friend of mine and someone that I've known for almost a decade, I think. I always find it really fun to chat with him about what he's doing, about sport, about the technology that he's building. He's always such a positive person who really makes you just want to go out and build something and feel good about what you're creating, about building a startup, about building a product. He's also done a lot of really neat stuff in his career, and it's just really cool to dig into that and learn more about his career trajectory, his path as an entrepreneur, how all of these things sort of came together. I really enjoyed this chat. I love these conversations where I talk to people that I already know quite well, because I get to learn all kinds of things that I did not know about them when we're doing it in the context of like an interview and chatting about their journey. I really hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. This is my chat with Leigh Sembaluk. Hey, Leigh.
Hey, Raf.
How's it going? As if we weren't just talking right before this.
No, I know. It's all for the show. I'll do whatever's needed.
Yeah, I'm gonna dive right into this and just kind of ask you, well, first off, what is Preception and what is Pro Instinct?
Yeah, Preception is the company that I started, and Pro Instinct is the first product. It's probably the best way of just separating those two. Preception, what we do is we train and measure spatial awareness, decision making, speed of thought in athletes, starting with soccer. I'll say football because that's what I usually say first. And
I was very surprised to hear the S word.
yeah, I know. I just, you got to cater to all audiences, right? But yeah, basically is based off all the things that were deemed like impossible to train and measure. And I didn't like that as an answer. and tech is meant to solve problems. So that's where we started, what we do, and what we're capable of doing.
Awesome. And Pro Instinct is within that. It's a mobile app?
Yeah. So speaking about pivots during COVID, hardware and access to Teams was a real problem for obvious. So we decided, well, since teams aren't competing and athletes aren't working with one another, and I would argue spatial awareness really went down during COVID because everything was in front of a person on a screen. Walking down the street, you don't have to dodge anybody because they moved to the other side of the street. So we decided, well, if we go software only and use a cell phone as sort of stimulus and as a training platform, what's possible? And that's where it was born out of. Actually, the exact moment that I remember having that was driving down Denman Street, and I was in the right lane of two lanes, and there was a woman just walking down the sidewalk, and then just like goes to avoid somebody in front to keep social distancing, but just like walks onto the street and steps there, and her purse like hits my side view mirror, but had no idea I was there or moving, and she's fine, but it was just it was that moment of like, oh, this person in front of me is more important, and don't even look to see or hear a car or anything else, or pay attention. They're, on the street and
Yeah.
jumping onto a street in a lane. And it was one of those moments where it's like, yeah, we really need to start working on increasing spatial awareness again. And it was a big moment of like, I need to make this change now and get,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Wild. So actually, with all of that, why did you start this company? Who are you?
Yeah.
Where did you come from? Just appeared out of nowhere and just kind of like, all right, I'm gonna start this company.
Yeah, and I'll say I really didn't want to start a tech company. Like,
Really?
I didn't.
That's so funny to me.
In many ways, I tried to do everything possible to avoid it because my background was as a footballer. Like
Yeah.
that's what I've done since I was 4, and then went to university and I got a degree, but that was just so that I could play football and and
I love
signed pro after that in New York and got injured, and then coached full time with Vancouver Whitecaps and SFU. And my job was to make pro athletes, and I was happy and on the field. And, like, so pretty much as far away from tech as possible, where I'm just a coach working with athletes and a ball. And yeah, there's tech involved, but what my background is. Luckily for me, I know enough about tech because my dad was involved in computers and my brother's a solutions architect at IBM and stuff. So there's like, I have some knowledge through family.
You could throw some ideas around and
Yeah.
hope to get some half decent feedback.
Yeah. And family can't ignore me when I'm asking for good advice, right? So it's built in from birth. So luckily I had some advice and just grew up around computers and stuff. But why I started the company and got into tech was, at one point I was doing exit interviews with players and just discussing like, your spatial awareness isn't where we need it to be. Your decision making is a little bit too slow. And, like it's just, the reality was those things weren't good enough. I mean, they were technically good athletes, like is kind of the best of the young athletes that are available always.
Yeah.
And one of them said, well, what do I do? And I gave them some, I'll say, BS answer to make it, make it correct for the podcast. But the reality was like, you just need to get better at it. And the only real way is by being in a good competitive environment like ours. But they've been there for a few years, haven't really added it. And we're sending them back into kind of like the amateur environment, knowing that probably won't get better. So that bothered me because it's like, I'm just giving answers that I don't believe in, but I can't say, sorry, you're screwed. Like, I don't know. So my best friend is on his way to being a neuroscientist. So we had some conversations. He put me in touches with like some cognitive science professors at SFU, and we started discussions. And the consensus was, it's a skill, so it can be learned. And I was like, great, I agree, right? Because I've had it, other people have had it. And that's what we look for, right? And I said, well, can it be taught? And he goes, well, in theory, yes. And can it be measured? Same thing. Like, in theory, yes. And like, but in reality, right? Because in theory, we can visit neighboring galaxies and things, right now. And the answer was like, I've never seen a way of doing that. So I was kind of at this point of, well, that's my job and what I want to do and want to improve players. But the most important things to their success, in my opinion, we can't train, we can't measure as coaches even. So the discussion is like, hey, Raph, I think this player's, spatial awareness isn't where it needs to be. And you're like, hey, Leigh, I think it is. And then we kind of just say, okay. Like, I think they make decisions too slow. I don't, okay. Like, there's nothing to go off of where speed, strength, technical ability, there's metrics for everything. So So yeah, for me, I just thought, well, okay, let's start from zero, because that's what it was. So like developing methodology, how would we train this? And
Hmm.
came up with a way of training it using existing hardware that was okay and got us to the level of proving things, and launched that as a consulting company. And it failed because the hardware sucked and wasn't made for purpose, and it
Yeah.
was too bright outside, sensors would start triggering. And it's like, well, okay, this doesn't work. So one of those other moments of I just either turn and go back to being a coach and just make peace with it, or build something for purpose. And when I look,
Yeah.
okay, what's possible if we actually build something that can measure these things, that is made to work on field with teams as they already train with, like all this, and saw the possibilities, and that it went way beyond just football and to other sports, to potential like policing and training that way, and military. And it's like, well, that's there's a lot of room for growth in all these things, and the outcomes were, in terms of performance, like mind-blowingly good.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to start a company, and I really wasn't excited about it. But I remember talking to somebody, it was more of like a advisor, mentor. It might have been at Launch Academy, but they basically said, like, when you have like every reason to not do it, but you still can't let it go,
Yeah.
they're like, that's a good place to start from, because kind of need some of that as a founder of just like, doesn't make sense, but I just like solving this problem is bigger than whatever problems in front of me, or reasons to turn back. So yeah,
Yep.
so that's my long-winded story of
I love it.
how I got to where I was.
Got dragged kicking and screaming into the tech world, and then was kind of like, oh, I kind of have to.
it, it was equal parts that and excitement of like, okay, I really want this to
Yeah.
exist, and I know
Yeah.
other people do too, right? And the main thing is, like, we were constantly failing players because
Yeah.
we're expecting them to have things that they might even have it, and we can't even identify it and agree upon it. Where
Yeah.
like track and field, exactly how fast somebody is. Like,
Yeah.
it's easy. So, that part excited me too. And it was like, okay, we actually can give players the opportunities that they've earned and deserved, and, you know, allow us to see what their potential really is, versus, what just in our minds we've made up about them. We also have biases. We validate our own, first perspectives of players.
Yeah.
So that was the other thing. First impressions are important. And if it's one that they're not aware, that sticks in our mind. If it's one where
Yeah.
they made a great turn, it's like, oh, and we keep validating that. And neither of them is necessarily based in fact. So
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the stuff that has kept me going all these years.
Cool. I love it. I'm kind of curious with all of that and Preception as a company that builds hardware and Pro Instinct as a product that is software. I feel like I've heard you get pretty enthusiastic about youth sport.
Yeah.
And we did some work together on some Pro Instinct stuff last year. And I'm kind of curious how youth specifically and encouraging youth sport fits into all of this.
Yeah. So the hardware side has uses for youth sport, absolutely, and we'll tie it in, but it's just because of price points and everything is
Yeah.
a lot higher, and we're also the hardware's still in R&D, even though we've made really good progress and hit some milestones there. But for your question, for youth sport, it was part of the reason why Pro Instinct came about. I'll say just access to sport, to training, to basically start eliminating barriers
Yeah.
was the main reason, because nowadays almost everyone has a cell phone.
Yeah.
We've who even made everything, so that the cell phone someone has can be like 5-10 years old and it still runs fine. And apps can be super cheap and just built, like we have it where it's just built into what clubs or organizations already provide. And even then, if it's too expensive for certain ones, we can give it as discounts or free. Like we really, the whole point is eliminating barriers. And
I love it.
we even did a partnership to do a bit of a launch with the North American Indigenous Games. It was generously funded by Canadian Tire's Jumpstart program, who I've been extremely impressed with and have a lot of respect for the stuff they do. And yeah, they're just a joy to work with. And we're looking at more with something like the North American Indigenous Games. It's athletes from literally all areas of Canada and into the US as well, where access to training is sometimes hours away for club teams for other things. So that was part of the aim, is just let's get really good training. Even if someone's training on their own, that's almost impossible to have any sort of spatial awareness and quick decision making on whether space or opportunities are around us. So it was ways of taking things that weren't even being trained at MLS academy and NCAA university levels and saying, here, anyone can have this for free or covered through donations and foundations to any youth club. When it comes back to just everyone being able to have the chance to start realizing potential in the ways that they want to. And if that's sport, then great. We're happy to be there.
Yeah. Awesome. Your journey, little Leigh. What would little Leigh have benefited from this app? I'm sure, of course, but yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about your journey as a young athlete?
So absolutely I would have benefited from it. I also had, maybe a built-in version of this that I don't recommend, but I always was playing about 4 or 5 years up. And I mean, Raph, you know me, but I'm like 5'7" on a good day. So I was always playing against kids that were like 3-4 years older. I was playing in the men's league in Saskatchewan when I was 15. So like I would just get kicked by people that would be upset there's a little kid that's doing okay in a game. And I had more of just everyone was faster than me, everyone was stronger, and I would just get fouled a lot. So I had to constantly be looking around, and if I was taking one too many touches, I would know because I would feel it. So I'm not suggesting that's what other people do, but the amount of times that I had ice and things after games was huge. But the benefit was when I was and became a fully grown adult, I now didn't have any of those disadvantages, but I had such good awareness.
Gonna say you don't recommend it, but it doesn't hurt. But it does hurt. It doesn't hurt.
It's less painful using an application. We haven't built out the hardware to just put in a studs up slide tackle when you take too long to see something.
Yeah, is that on the roadmap though?
It's a few generations down. Lawyers have some problems with, so we'll see when it gets released. But it's been pushed off a few times despite the best efforts at getting it through.
Pushed off with elbows out, or so actually I'm kind of curious because with your background, and I love this about like talking to people who didn't come from like tech, who came from somewhere else, like stepping into tech world and like learning how product development, but even actually, so for you went from not tech to hardware, which I feel like is a whole other like can of worms. And then into software, which is also just very different. Like, what are some things that you learned going through all of these transitions? Because I feel like it sounds a bit like a lot of whiplash.
Yeah. First thing, avoid hardware at all costs. Yeah, like that is one of the lessons.
Aren't you also working on another hardware?
Yes, but so Maybe I'll explain that. If you can't avoid building hardware,
Yeah.
then it actually proves that your hardware is necessary,
Yeah.
right? Which is a good place to be, because it takes so long and every expense just builds up, because changing one line of code, you can run it right away. Changing a sensor or a chip or something on a board, that's three
You can't
weeks.
one click deploy that stuff?
Yeah, it's weeks to get it manufactured and sent over, and then that may not fix something, right? And of course, there's burn rate for everything else going on, even if that stops it. And also, hardware is often like, let's get the hardware we think can get us the data or do the thing that we think it can do to get the insights we think we can get. Like, but the upfront
Yeah.
cost is just big for that, right? So that's probably my first lesson. I think it's a really good barrier, because if you need it, then that also means any problem you're solving also needs that hardware,
Yeah.
right? Where software is way easier, but it can also be
Yeah.
replaced a lot easier if someone else can come along, and there's not really patents and moats for software. It's easier to get in, but also easier for anyone else to get in. There's probably two lessons that are tied of me being non-tech and getting in. And one is how genuinely helpful the tech community has been. I've noticed almost every founder I've talked to has some bit of humility, because we fail in so many different ways that it's like, hey, if I can help, let me help or give advice or connect you with somebody, because it's the only real reason that person's still around, is because they've had all this help along the way.
Yeah.
And I've seen that not just in Vancouver, but a lot of other places.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy which ones aren't willing to help. And
Mhm.
that's okay too. But it's like, it's night and day. And we don't need to be friends with everybody either. Uh,
Yeah.
so that was probably the first thing. And then the second thing was, I feel I have had an advantage, because I didn't come in thinking I really knew how to do things,
Mhm.
which made it easier, because I just had to synthesize a bunch of really good information and advice, and more say, I'm not going to take this because this doesn't apply to us.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I'll say, often, and I've seen this actually as I've gone on further, there's times where I just think I have the right answer and right way of going things. And the first thing somebody has to do is convince me that my way isn't the best way, which takes time, and
Yeah.
then introduce the new way of, like, that was probably the other really good lesson, was it's so much more efficient and easy and quicker, and takes less time if I don't pretend that I have all the answers right away, and can just say, hey, you're smarter than me. Let me listen to you in this realm, and then go to somebody else and say, hey, you're smarter than me or that other person in this realm.
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, so
Yeah, it's awesome to have. I feel like I appreciate that so much, both about like the community that I was in, the startup community that I was in before in Halifax and here in Vancouver. Like there's just so many people who are willing to sort of share, and if you're open to it, like there's so many people who are willing to help, and yeah, if you stay open, then it's just so much easier. Yeah.
And also, often the smartest people and the ones that know what they're doing don't act like it.
Yeah.
So, like, it's nice to not overestimate or underestimate people. It's just ask a question, because there's some brilliant people that I was like, oh, I've talked to you maybe once, and they're a little bit shy or socially awkward or whatever, but like the advice, and when they do decide to speak, it's like, it's really worth listening to. So I also like that, say sport gets a reputation for big, strong, loud, fast, confidence, all this, and that's
Yeah.
generally what thrives, where tech kind of, I'll say, equalizes a lot of that, in my opinion too. So
Yeah.
yeah, like, I never really knew where the key pieces of advice were coming from, and that might just be, yeah, I've seen you around a couple times. Like, what do you do? And
Yeah.
so it's been awesome that way.
Are there any like things that you think really helped you coming from sport, coming from being an athlete to tech? Like you run your team in a particular way because you come from sport, or I don't know, like anything like that that you think
Yeah, I get out the tactics board and draw the X's and circles and lines.
Yeah, little whiteboard markers and
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe I'll start from like the coaching side first, because I
Okay.
feel in many ways coaching is like the evolution into, dropping the ego, because we're a bit older and washed up, but still like, it's kind of like it's not about us anymore, or I'll say
Yeah.
when coaching is done properly.
Yeah.
So the big lesson I learned there was I was the only like heavily involved person that couldn't actually play the game, right?
Okay.
So it was all about making sure everyone else involved can thrive. Like
Yeah.
that's what it was. So when it comes from me in tech, and also without me being a hardware engineer or anything like this, right? It was very much my job is to help somebody else be their best, right? So that was a really big lesson for me, because
Mm-hmm.
everyone else that I work with, for most of it, is the one really doing the hands-on work. So that was probably one of the biggest lessons. But then from the player side, I'll go with two. And one is actually, it's also aimed at a criticism of tech in general. But as an athlete, it's really clear of understanding like how much energy we put into something, and also resting and taking care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And throughout a week, if it's like every day we're training as hard as we can, you just fail, because there's no energy for a game or when it matters and such. So the one thing that I really have tried to instill and understand is like running a company is one grueling season. Right. And I
Yeah.
see tech so often of just like push through, grind, stay up late, do all this. And I just see people burning out. Where for me, it's more of there's some days where I'm just on a roll and have tons of energy, and I'll be doing work till 8, 9 at night, and that's fine. And then there's other days that I'll just come to like 1 or 2 o'clock and look and see my schedule and be like, I've got nothing else. I've not been productive. Like, stop, rest, call it a day, and
Yeah.
come back tomorrow actually fresh, instead of just, I'll say, falling flat and such for days to come. I think that's one of the big lessons, is actually being able to check in and be like, how am I doing today? Like, what's my energy like? As an example, if I'm coming to a podcast and just like, oh yeah, it's just another grind. Why even do it, right? So
Yeah.
um that's one of the lessons. And then I think the other one is just as an athlete, I think or with the team sports, I'll say
Mm-hmm.
there's a good understanding of our role is to do everything we can to compete and win.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sport like football, that doesn't always happen. Right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's just like, yeah, this game, we weren't going to win. They were too good. It's almost like a test of just how good am I right now? And then
Mm-hmm.
try and be a little bit better the next time. Know that it's just like, yeah, there's so many different factors, so many things that can change, and like that willingness to constantly just battle, and then be like, okay, I did my best.
Yep.
And we won. Great. Celebrate. Be happy. We lost.
Yep.
Be pissed off and disappointed, but I'll be back on the field tomorrow, and, just continue. So I think that's the other thing that is like that. I'll say that resilience, and just going with the punches and having that. Yeah, it's not a confidence. It's just more of just a solidity of just like, this is who I am. This is what I do. And now that's as a tech and tech founder, and we get beat
Yeah.
up a lot, and we have a lot of losses and wins, but that's
Just keep going.
yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Leigh. This is really fun, and I feel like I learned a lot about you, about the stuff that you do. And I'm curious if you have a small tech product to plug, since this is the Small Tech Podcast after all.
I know, and the thing that I'm going to plug and I mean it kind of ties in multiple ways. But first of all, I'm in football withdrawal, sitting at the
Okay.
desk all the time. So the small tech thing I'm actually going to plug is a friend's game that he made. It was made by Gabe Carcanis, who we actually both know, but he developed a game called Pocket FC. And it's it's a free to play game that's either for mobile or web. It's kind of like the best blend of playing like fantasy football with friends, where you do drafts and compete against each other and like games are matched up, and a football manager game where you actually so you own a team, and then matches are just kind of set throughout the season. So they happen generally about twice a day. But you actually get to compete with friends in a league and, buy players and sell players and set formations and do all that. I mean this in the best of ways. Like it's the crappy overhead view of dots going around the control and just watch like a quick 3-minute game. Which is fun, because it's just, you get to see them play out what you have and see the win or loss. But the reason it's actually made my life better is because it's kind of like, it takes 5 or 10 minutes a day, and you just sit down and be like, how did my team do? Set the formation, and that can be it for the next game. But it's turned into a way of like having a nice little break that can't get lost into, because there's nothing to do after that 5 or 10 minutes. And I just wait till, and here it's 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. are the games. So I just wake up, see how I did, set it at lunch. And that's, kind of all I need to do. But it's like that way of injecting just a little bit of joy and a bit of a break. And also a way of, my team's in the MLS league, and so is Gabe and a few other people we know. So it's just a way of doing a little bit of trash talking, or actually being like, yeah, you were good that game. well, so anyway, it's just, it's a fun way to build that little bit of connection and smiling and joy and whatever is to, into the day. So
nice.
Some people meditate, some people do all these other things. For me, that's just like a little way of throwing that in. So yeah, I want to make sure I get it proper. I think it's pocketfc.com. So
awesome. Cool. We'll link to it in the show notes as well.
Yeah. And if you join the MLS, I'm Montreal FC and currently in second. I think I'm going to lose the league this time, but
oh no.
Yeah.
Who's winning?
It's actually Gabe's partner, Seattle.
I think there might be some that sounds like collusion to me. Someone's got access to the back end system.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. I think if that was the case, Gabe would be doing a little better. But, yeah. No. It's a lot of fun. So. I think we might see you on there soon, Raph, too.
Yep. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Leigh.
Thanks for having me on. It's been fun.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, have a good rest of your day.
Thanks. You too, Raph.
See ya. Folks, that was my chat, my interview with Leigh Sembaluk. I had so much fun. I feel like I learned so many things that I did not know about Leigh. I just love it. It's also just really neat to hear about that career trajectory and the things that you can sort of move from one industry to another, and how that sparks ideas and learnings, and going from pro soccer to coaching to hardware tech to software tech. Super cool. If you want to find out more about what Leigh is building, you can head over to proinstinctapp.com to check out the app. If you want to get a sense about Preception as a company, you can head over to preception.io. Yeah, check out the Pro Instinct app. It's super cool, and if you know some youth who are part of a club that could use some cool training technology, check it out. It's awesome. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast and you are not yet subscribed, head over to smalltechpodcast.com. You will find all of the links to all of the apps there where you can subscribe to the podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and the little bell and all of that stuff so that you get notified about the next episode. If you have any feedback, we'd love reviews. You can shoot us an email at hello@smalltechpodcast.com and let us know if you want to be our next guest. We'd love to interview you. If you're building some cool tech and you're having a positive impact in the world, we'd love to have you on the podcast. If you are building a product, a digital product, a tech platform, something along those lines, we would also love to collaborate with you or work with you. If you need any help, if you need any advice, just head over to goec.io. Love to chat with you and learn more about what you're building. And maybe there's some way for us to collaborate. In the meantime, we all want to do something good in the world, so go out there and build something good, folks. I will see you in the next one. See ya.